praCh. Fine.
Are we on?
We are on, I believe.
We're on. Good evening, everyone. My name is praCh. I am one of your hosts for tonight's event. My name is praCh Lee, and also co-hosting with me is also the co-director of the Cambodia Town Film Festival, is Caylee So. And hope you enjoyed the screening that we just had.
Hi, everyone. Just wanted to say Happy Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, and welcome to the first ever Los Angeles Asian Pacific Film Festival Virtual Showcase, presented by Visual Communications. From celebrating our histories and cultures to mobilizing our communities to be socially and politically active, we present the virtual showcase to keep us all connected.
And this showcase is brought to you by our partners at Comcast, NBC Universal, Sony Pictures Entertainment, Nielsen, HBO, and Warner Media, and also National Geographic. And Visual Communication would also like to thank our community partners for today, and they are the Khmer Alumni Association and KhmerLife. And for more information, please visit their website at vcmedia.org. That's Visual Communication at vcmedia.org. And today's program is Cambodia Town Film Festival present Americana. And Also, for the Cambodia Town Film Festival, we are the only Cambodian film festival in the United States, and we are proud to host and be partnership with Visual Communication to present you these short films, especially in times like this. We all need to be organized and also have information on our community and also what has been going through as well. So thank you for joining us and visiting and watching these films. So I would like to introduce you to Caylee. Caylee.
Just wanted to say we're very excited about bringing you these 4 Khmer American short films. I remember growing up and never having seen anyone Cambodian American portrayed on screen. So to be here today and to be able to have a platform to celebrate the diversity of our stories is just incredibly amazing. So again, we want to thank our friends from Visual Communications for spotlighting the Khmer Americana voice this month. We are going to get started by introducing some of the filmmakers or the other filmmakers on the panel tonight. And filmmakers, feel free to say hello to the audience at home who are watching us right now, as I am mentioning you. First off, I wanted to introduce to you Thavary Krouch, the writer-director of BITTER MELONS. She has an MFA in writing and directing for film from Columbia College in Chicago. When she is not making her own films, she's supporting other independent filmmakers in her role as independent film coordinator for the Chicago Film Office. So welcome.
And our other filmmakers, this is a duel. We have Tristan Seniuk and Voleak Sip. They are the writing directing team behind Float, which is directed in Seattle. They are Seattle-based filmmakers who is now in LA. Welcome to LA, guys. And they have directed music videos, commercials, and now films. So this is they're on and off again members of the Seattle community, both in films exposition and production. Float is their directorial debut.
And next we have Krew Keth, who is the writer-director of Removal and is currently studying film at Georgia State University. Hi, Krew. All right, let's get started. praCh.
So welcome everyone to DivSul once more. Later we're going to chat about other questions. I think we'll get into more personal questions with each individual of the filmmakers. But this question would be for all of the filmmakers at the same time. And feel free to jump in and answer questions as we go along. The first question is, when did you guys know you wanted to be a filmmaker? And those of you from the Cambodian American background, was it a tough decision?
Okay.
I can go first. Great question. Who came up with these questions?
That was me. That was me. I kind of felt like I wanted to know this from other Cambodian American filmmakers.
Yeah, no, it's because you have to wonder, why would a Cambodian want to make films, a Cambodian American want to make films? Because there's not a whole ton of us, right? For me, I grew up being very creative, writing stories, drawing, and I think as you get older, you sort of abandon that to things that are a little bit more practical, like getting a college degree or finding a full-time job, and because that's what we're taught, right? And it wasn't until in my early 20s, I graduated, worked full-time for a nonprofit, for a local nonprofit, and this was in Indianapolis. And I had to stop and question myself, like, where am I going next? I am so unhappy. And it was really returning to the things that I loved, which was storytelling. And as like a single person, what I would do, so this was my general routine. I would get off from work by 5:30, go to Blockbuster, rent a bunch of movies, and even TV shows like Sex and the City, just run a bunch of stuff and kind of just like binge and escape. And then I just hit a point where I was like, I can make these things. This is what this is what drives me. This is what is saving me at the moment. But I know that I can make these things. And I want, I wasn't conscious about, because we weren't talking about diversity and inclusion back then, right? This is a pretty recent thing in terms of having Hollywood and sort of the people in power realize that diversity and inclusion is not just makes business sense, but is also culturally important. It's a pretty recent thing, right? For me, it was just a personal decision to say that I need to pursue the thing that is going to keep me alive. So yeah, I would say like watching Sex and the City TV show, but stories about women and getting lost in independent films, including Alice Wu's Saving Face. That was like a rare thing, right? To see an American film on a shelf at the local Blockbuster and being so intrigued enough to watch it, and then really being moved by the fact that I saw another Asian American face. That meant everything. So it started from there, and I stopped talking.
All right, we can move to Krew. We'll just move backwards.
Okay. So yeah, I started, I guess, liking film in high school. I moved out to Georgia with my family and had to go to a new high school, and the guidance counselor asked me to pick an elective class, and I told her I didn't know. I told her to pick for me, basically. So she picked this class. She said, "Oh, this one's called media production," and I'm like, "Okay, so what do they do? What do they do there?" And she said, "So I don't know. I think it's about fixing cameras or something." And I said, "All right, well, I'll take it." And it ended up being, filmmaking. So and I just
Okay, Voleak Sip, and
you want to go first?
Sure. I don't know if I ever wanted to be a director per se. I knew I wanted to be in the production side in some capacity. Just binging on media. My go-to since I was a kid would be like action movies or historical soap operas. So that would be what I would see and watch, but then it just like binged into everything Eastern European dramas. And so when I was 17, I started volunteering at the Northwest Film Forum in their offices to see how film exhibition went, and got to meet some filmmakers, and then became a projectionist and saw like just how film would be shown in the theater, and like tangentially feeling it with your fingers. And it was just kind of, at 17, it was kind of transformative. And so I always saw my strength as in the kind of expediting tasks. So with our projects together, I wouldn't put myself as a director. I would be his assistant director or producer, or like filling in wardrobe stylist, that sort of stuff, just filling in the blanks. And it wasn't until like throughout the years, we've been together for 10 plus years. We've known each other 17 years of our lives. So throughout the years of knowing each other, I would just feed him random anecdotes about my family and my upbringing, and him being the storyteller mindset. It's just like, this is kind of a crazy, or not crazy, but like, this is really fresh and interesting, but I want to make this a story, but I can't do this without you. And so it was really him pushing me into that directing side, writing, directing side. Like, this is your story. I need you to be by my side. And so it kind of became a co-production beyond me just like telling crew people, hey, I need the lights over there, which is what I'm used to doing. So that was my trajectory. I don't know, wayward trajectory into directing.
And then I guess I since I was a little, it's funny, I started out when I was a little kid, I was really interested in epidemiology and viruses. So it's weird to be in this pandemics now that interest has like come or all the way back around. But I went from thinking I was going to go into studying viruses to then seeing, my dad showed me Gary, the Wrath of God, the Herzog film. And I had seen Hollywood films and whatnot prior to that. But that film kind of showed that filmmaking, like story and adventure, can be combined, that like the filmmaker can live ultimately within their own crazy adventure too. And so that shifted my perspective to wanting to do film. And I grew up in a household of like, both my parents are artists and my dad was a photographer. And so there's always was like, we did museums over water parks or whatever. So it was always like arts was pushed forward. And I think just the adventure side of film brought me in, and kind of the tech nerd side too, of learning about cameras and gear and filters and whatnot. I wasn't one of those people who had my own camera or whatever growing up. So it wasn't until college or end of high school that I started learning editing, and then just Craigslist jobs and working with friends for music videos and step by step and up and up. But kind of always on a quest to like, for every project that I want to be involved with, I want to like top to bottom know everything about it, rather than just be like, oh, it's an interesting subject, I'll just do the surface level of research. And I guess like this is like Float was a project that was like, no, I want to know all the components of like how to present it the way it should be presented. So in any project I've worked on, that's always been the mindset, is like heavy pre-production to like get all the details right and like talk to the right people to have things represented correctly.
Thank you. And Caylee?
Yeah, so I didn't, I'll admit this, I didn't know what a director was until I was about 24 or 25, I can't remember. And I always knew that I liked theater and I liked acting, but it wasn't until I was deployed in Iraq and I was watching $1 Million Baby, and I was in the middle of this war and I was just like bawling, you know, and I forgot for that moment that I was like in war. And I was just thinking about like, you know, who gets to write that or who gets to make that. And it wasn't until that moment that I started to like research what a director was. And I think when I came off of that deployment, I switched my major from business to creative writing so that I could pursue becoming a director in a couple years or so. But that was like the trajectory. I mean, I don't think without the deployment or me thinking, oh, wow, like there's somebody who is back there creating this thing that just completely transports you, that it made me think, wow, like I might want to do that. Like I've never seen or heard Cambodian American story. And that was something that I knew that I could bring, I guess, to the narrative. Yeah.
So how is everybody holding up, by the way? Like this just, you know, the outbreak just started like in February or so. And I know Tristan, they, you know, just came from Seattle to LA and now they're cooped up in the house. I guess all of us is cooped up in the house. But how are you guys holding up mentally?
We can go first. Yeah.
Have you guys fought yet and try to kick the other out the house here?
We only fought once at
and
the
we don't
beginning.
remember.
I think it was about dishes.
Yeah.
Which
The
anyone can relate to that.
it's I mean, I think we're potentially doing better than others. I normally work from home, as I'm in kind of a commercial editor and colorist, usually. And so my office is our other bedroom. And so I've been in quarantine indefinitely, like commuting from one room to the other. So that hasn't changed a whole lot. The whole like not going on, getting sunlight has been a big thing. But
I mean, I miss the ease of just going to the grocery store whenever you want. That's the thing I miss the most. And I don't know, I miss not having anxiety about going outside, and maybe I'm making someone else ill next to me, even though I'm like doing my best evading them, giving them 6 feet at least, and then of course at the beginning, there was like that huge rise in hate crimes against Asian people. And it's just like, just that general overlording anxiety.
Have you experienced that, like the hate crime, or?
Not directly. I mean, at the beginning of the COVID thing, I noticed this one guy, when he was introduced to us, he shook Tristan's hand and refused to shake my hand, and I wasn't sure, and he knew we were married, so I wasn't sure it was just a general sexism thing or a racist thing. And I'm like, well, I'll probably won't see you again, so hopefully this is just a one-off. And then since then, I've just been inside most of the time, so.
We have known of a few people, like family friends, who have had comments thrown their way.
Oh yeah, our friend's mom, or a friend's mom, she was in Arizona, and a little kid saw her and yelled, "Look, Ma, there's COVID."
Oh.
Yeah.
Just like little things like that percolate.
Any of you guys have advice on, like, if those who experience the racism and the hatred, you guys have any advice for the people, how to react, or where to report and whatnot?
I don't have any good advice except like try to find your community to help you, because I mean, you can try to report it, and supposedly in LA, supposedly the FBI are going to help you, but I mean, nothing's guaranteed.
I'll just quote Michelle Obama and says, when they go low, you go high. We'll leave it at that. Like that. That's what I.
Yeah.
Krew, how are you holding up over there in Georgia?
I'm doing all right. I'm in my senior year at Georgia State, and I was working on my final film project for my fiction film production class, and I was gearing up to start production in like a week, and I had been working on this film the entire semester, and I had just prior to that I had helped out a couple other classmates and shot their film for them, and mine was up next, and then we got shut down.
Is this for your thesis film?
Not these. I'm not in graduate school yet, but it was for my final project for my fiction film class. And for that one, it's kind of intense, and we do have to like, we had to pitch basically our idea for our film the very first day. So we started literally the first day of class.
Okay. And Thavary, how are you in Chicago?
It's a day by day experience for me. It's a bit of a roller coaster. I don't know if anyone is feeling that, where one day you feel relatively okay, like you're like, I can do my work, I'm working from home, I am feeling like I can get through the day, and the next day it's like, what's the point? Like, what's the point? Like, the world is in distress, people are dying, people are struggling. So I go back and forth, and sunshine helps, going outside, getting fresh air, walking my dogs, hanging out with my husband if we're not killing each other, because I don't know how you two do it, but because he's there, and you kind of like, you project on that person, and you so there's a little bit of like nitpicking back and forth, but then we go full circle, and then we're okay. It's really, I've had, the beautiful thing is I haven't been, like, I am not known to keep in touch with people. I'm terrible at it. Like, I get distracted by life, but I've been able to maintain that. I can say that from the start of the stay-at-home order, which was like mid-March here in Illinois, I've been consistently checking in with people, having Zoom, our Zoom chat time or FaceTimes. And it's been not only good for my mental health, but good for my friendships and relationships. So that is the plus side. So I don't know if anyone is experiencing that sort of this, I don't know how to, we physically can't connect, but because we need to connect, because we are social creatures. I needed that. Like, I thought that I didn't. I thought I'd be fine. Okay, this is just what I wanted. I wanted to work from home. I wanted to be able to get up from bed and then, you know, go straight to work and not worry about taking a shower, brushing my teeth, putting on makeup. This is like the first time I have on makeup since like 2 weeks. So yeah, it's been interesting. And I also have to remind myself, like, this is just like a small blip in like the bigger timeline of our life. Like, it will come to an end. Like, this pandemic, by the will of God, will come to an end, whether through a vaccination, a cure, it will die out, or it will die out. We will get through this. It's just, in the meantime, it's just the day by day, right? That it's day by day.
Yeah, and contrary to what you heard, to all you guys, do not inject yourself with disinfectant. Don't try to drink bleach. Don't do that. So back to the questions. I know all these stories that you guys are telling are very unique for Cambodian Americans, and not just for Cambodians. But how and why are these stories? How did you choose it, and why did you choose to tell that story that you made the film on?
I can go first. So Removal was basically based on my cousin and her husband. I'm not going to say the name because technically he's still going through it, and he still potentially could be deported anytime. But yeah, I one day I had to drive my cousin around because she didn't have her car, and we had to take her husband to courthouse to check in, because they have to check in I think it's annually, and but there's no parking in the courthouse in Long Beach, and so I had to circle around, you know, just constantly while we were waiting for him to come back out. And I just looked at my cousin, and she was like, you know, almost panicking with anxiety, because basically she doesn't know if he's going to come back out and tell her that he's going to be deported, or if he's going to even come back out at all. And it was just tripping me out that she has to go through this every year, no matter what. And it's kind of like torture, you know? So that's when I started learning a little bit more about it. And I really, you know, we're really underrepresented, represented in media. So what better way to I guess fix that would be, you know, in film. So
Caylee?
Yeah, so PAULINA was a thesis idea. I think, you know, we had a writing class in which we had to bring in a log line for a story idea that we could potentially do for a thesis film. And I wanted to make a sci-fi film, but I hadn't fleshed out the idea yet. But I had always had this story about a teenage gambler, and it was called like the story of the Diary of a Gambler. And so, like, for the first class, I walked in one day and I said, okay, I can pitch this story. And I said, I walked into class and I said, you know, this is the story of a 17-year-old girl who lives inside a Cambodian gambling community, who struggles with her father and gambling addiction. And I remember, like, my thesis professor, his face kind of just like lit up and his eyes kind of went wide, and he was like, what is this Cambodian community of gamblers, and how is it different than like any other gambling communities? And so he was just like, you need to go back and you need to write that, like I want to see what it is. And so I did. I went back and I wrote a treatment for it, and the treatment turned into the script, and the script turned into what we inevitably shot. And it didn't change very much from its conception or its first draft to where it was in production. So it was just by happenstance. I for some reason, I purposely stayed away from making a Cambodian American film, and then just ended up making a Cambodian American film.
Thank you.
I think it did the same thing too, actually. I never thought I would make a film about my culture, but I don't know, I gravitated towards it. So I know what you mean.
Yeah.
And Yeah, and the lit for float, it seems like relevant now and never because you guys made a film about, you know, boy and a girl kind of self-isolating and smoking weed at home, and now here we are. So how do you guys feel about that? And there's a question from the, I guess from the viewer. They asked like, when making these films, like how does your parents feel about choosing a career as a filmmaker, and did they approve or disapprove?
It's an interesting question.
Yeah.
I mean, like any parents, they want you to have a safe and stable career, you know, with prosperity, like guaranteed road of prosperity. And the film career is not a guaranteed road of prosperity. So I have to like temper, you know, the age-old question. So how much money are you making now? How much money are you making now? I have to temper that. Like, we're doing okay. I don't want to tell you how much. We're just doing okay.
Filmmakers.
That is so relatable. I get that question from my dad all the time.
Like, you haven't made money yet in this? Like, you live in Hollywood. It's like, no, it's LA, but.
No, my mom brought me to my first modeling. I guess I wanted to act when I was younger, and she brought me to my first like modeling session or whatever. And I was terrible at it. I was terrible at walking. So after a while, it was like, you know, like behind the camera was like just a so much better place to be.
Yeah.
Krew?
Sorry, what was the question?
How did your parents feel about
right.
you choosing to be a filmmaker?
My parents, they were really supportive. They liked my work. At first, they weren't sure about it because I was making a lot of like, you know, just small videos just with me and like my friends and my cousins or something like that in the backyard of zombies and things. And I would just first start out by testing. Like I would try to learn a new visual effect in After Effects or something, and I would go and try it out and shoot something in the backyard. And then one day I just started writing a script, and for some reason I thought, well, maybe if I put an audition out, a casting call out, and let's see if anybody would actually like this idea. And I started getting people wanting to audition for it, and I was surprised but yeah, they've always been supportive of me. I mean, they worry about the money too, but I kind of I guess I give myself an out by saying that, you know, I can always go to teaching or even visual effects as a backup, and still make some stable money if I have to. It may not be what I want to do, but like storytelling, but it's something to get by, and they're okay with that.
Thank you. And Thavary, your film is about bitter melon. Now, why bitter melon? And are you a chef? Do you have any background in cooking? Because it's about a chef. And
who here loves bitter melons?
I did until late in life.
I like the soup.
When it's stuffed with the ground pork in the soup.
Yeah.
It's edible, right? Like you're like,
it's a different taste.
Well, no kid will like it because of that bitter taste. I think you have to like it as an adult, you know, because adults, we love things that are like.
Yeah.
So what's the story behind that? Like, why'd you pick that and made a movie out of it? I know the metaphor is there, bitter melon, but.
Exactly. So it came to me like when I was going through chemotherapy. So I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma in 2015. And during that time, you know, you have chemotherapy, you're pretty much not functioning because you have like chemo brain, but also affords you a lot of time to think. So in that time of thinking, I was also craving my mom's bitter melon soup, like bitter melons, because it's nutrient rich, it's good for you. And like you, Caylee, like I hated it growing up, but as I got older, I would crave it. And I was especially craving it when I was going through, like, my body was going through like this, was basically being like ravaged by chemo, you know, as well as this cancer. So long answer short, yeah, it was during that time, 2015, when I was just, the idea just came to me. I was missing her food. I also was in the midst of working on a feature documentary, didn't really want to pursue that anymore. And I was like, if I'm going to make something, I'm just going to do it. There's so many things out of your control when you're making a documentary. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to get back to writing a fiction narrative piece, because I'll know the beginning, the middle, and the end, and then I can just go make it, right? Versus waiting on the story to happen. And yeah, and I wanted to feature Bitter Melons because most people don't know what it is. It's like praCh said, it's also like a good metaphor. It's visual, food is visual. I'm a home cook. I wouldn't say I'm a chef. So a combination of that, like just the craving of the food and wanting to see it on film. And also, when I was in my early 20s, I worked in a restaurant, and I worked with a chef who he's just one, you know, there's like these people that sort of stay with you. They stay with you. And he eventually passed away from a heart attack, but he was such a character, and I wanted to bring some of that into a story as well. So it's sort of a combination of all of that. This person who really inspired me, he really affected my life, food, family, and something that featured a Cambodian, you know, centering our Cambodian experience. Like, I wanted to see that. And it was all an experiment, because it had been years since I made like a short film, or it'd been years since I like wrote a script, because most of what I did in school, in grad school, were documentaries. So I was like, okay, I'm going to challenge myself. I'm going to challenge myself to do something that means something to me, and that's something that I can direct as a fiction piece. So that was the experiment. Like, so Bitter Melons, the film, was like an experiment.
Yeah, I love that the imagery of the heartbeat, and also the bitter melon and the father like staying in her head, and so is the food like in her heart and her head. So yeah, that was very compelling about the short film.
So we have a question from some of our viewers. One of our viewers asked, what is the, I think his last name is Quinn. He asked, what is the process of you guys for finding the performance for your film? Caylee, would you like to go first?
You know, I casted a lot of people in my film, and I knew I wasn't going to find like all the Cambodians I needed who were actors. So I cast Cambodians who were just who they were on screen. And that's kind of like, I think, the trick of casting like minorities, especially in the Cambodian community, because there isn't a website or an LA casting site for like, you know, Cambodians to log on. They don't do that. And so for me, I literally, like, if I saw a person who looked like the banana lady in my film, I tried to as much as I could to recruit that person and to talk to that person and be like, you know, you would be so great in this, you know, because she had that like natural, like authentic, older woman vibe about her. And she said no to me the first time I you know, offered her the part. And it wasn't until like maybe like a week later, after talking to people, she came back and she was like, okay, I would like to try it. Like, you know, like, so that was a lot of my actors were just like about finding real people who might be interested in acting, and then making sure that they were comfortable enough to be themselves or to play this role in front of the camera. I think that the best way to do that is to actually in the audition have a camera in their faces, because oftentimes, you know, like they become like, it becomes different when there's no camera versus when there's a camera. And when there's a camera, when you are not used to it, it becomes a lot harder. So I always say find out in the audition how natural they can be, how comfortable they can be, who are they as human beings, because this is particularly for like a Cambodian community or with actors who are professionals, you have different ways to do that.
I think you know, since we had the Cambodia Town Film Festival in Long Beach here, like ever since that happened and that got into the media, we've been getting a lot of emails and connecting from like studios that wants to cast Cambodians. So they will come to us first, and then we would have like an open cast and have a spread out emails. But for you guys in Georgia and also Chicago, how do you go about doing that?
Oh gosh, fine. So I mean, going back to what Caylee was saying, there's just not a pool of professional Cambodian actors to pull from. I knew that at least there were more female professionally trained Cambodian actors out there working in Hollywood. I knew that because beautiful Cambodian woman. For some reason, there's more female Cambodian actors versus male Cambodian actors. And so starting from there, it worked out. My lead, female of a certain age, mid-20s, early 30s, went online. A lot of this research was done online to find my lead, Pisay Pao. And out of all the sort of, when I came across my research, sorry guys, I know this is gonna happen. Great. This is what I was fearing. Emma, come on.
Okay.
So long answer short.
We love Emma, by the way. We saw her earlier.
Did you want to be on camera, Emma? I'm gonna have to grab her eventually.
Yes, please.
Emma, I'm trying to do my job. Long story short, finally got in touch with Pisay, and thank goodness she agreed to do the project. And then the rest of it was sort of filling up these other Cambodian roles. I was really determined to make sure that that all the Cambodian roles were played by Cambodian people, Cambodian actors. And so the rest were like real people, right? Non-professionals, right? And like Caylee, like it was a matter of, hold on.
Also, there's a 6 degree of separation from her film and your film because her niece is in your film.
Yeah.
Did they make that phone call and say, hey, there's a casting going on for this film, you should check it out? Because she kind of carried the film too. When she's on the screen, she kind of lit everybody up.
Oh, the little niece of Pisay, the actress. I love her.
Yeah, it's interesting. Pisay was the one who reached out to us because we didn't. She was in LA, we were in Seattle, so we just sent out this open call, and somehow word got to her.
Kickstarter.
Was it? She found it on Kickstarter.
Okay. We have mutual crew friends who worked on Z Nation, and so she looped in through Kickstarter.
Yeah, and wrote to us, and she's like, "How can I help?" And I'm like, "Well, we've been having the hardest time finding a 8-year-old Cambodian girl." And she's like, "I have exactly the person."
Well, it was funny because we originally Peyton was going to be the little friend, her friend who has a very small, the little boy, Mandy, who has a really small bit. And so we had cast her as that character, like on site pretty much. We met her family, talked to her, and it was like, oh, this is going to work perfectly. And then so the quest to find the Danny character was still like a much longer thing. We found Tony on Instagram through a music video director friend who came in for an audition. But it wasn't until really relatively far down the line that we just could not find the sister character, and we were like, well, maybe let's just try. Maybe Peyton can do it, even though I don't know.
In one sitting, she was able to memorize 8 pages of dialogue.
She just sat down and we watched her in 10 minutes. Was like
done. Okay.
And then she just did it, and we were like, oh,
why
okay, we'll change. We'll Yeah.
We'll tweak the character a little bit, but you got the part.
You got the part. And it was funny because when she came in, so Tony came out of construction. He never acted before, and he's friends in like, this music video world. So he'd kind of been around cameras, but never in front of it or anything. And he put a ton of time in when we knew it was going to be him based on just like, he looked exactly the way the script was written.
Well, the
and,
audition process was,
And you have Silong as your DJ. Shout out to Silong out there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Silong helped us a lot on the project. Yeah.
Yeah. But the audition process for Rocky was, we had an open call and we gave them a few lines to go over, but the main thing that we were looking for was just stand there. Just stand there as if you're loitering outside a Quickie Mart. And a lot of people didn't know how to stand. And
like, especially in the you're loitering in a pre-cell phone era, so you can't just go on your phone.
Yeah.
And most people didn't know what to do with their hands. And they just kind of were like, wait, what am I supposed to do? And Tony immediately just like posted up and we're like, okay, you understand this character.
Nice.
But so he did a ton of practicing. We met every couple of weeks, and then once we cast the love interest, and then we kind of had them meet, and it was like a slow process of like building.
A lot of workshopping to get the chemistry going and all them come with each other.
Where did the concept for the film come? I wasn't sure, was it based on a real person or?
Rocky's based on my older brother.
Ah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's still with the girl.
Did he marry her? I want to know.
Hey, man.
It's been a few years.
Okay.
Like, does he sing? Does your brother sing? Can he like belt out some Cincy Samut?
My other brother sings. The other brother, he drunkenly sings, but not well.
So thank you. So Krew, I know your film is more personal. It's probably and also Georgia has a few amount of Cambodians as well. But how do you put out a casting out there or ask people to star in or be in a part of a film about deportation when it's so personal and it's very taboo too? Like the community doesn't really want to talk about it. Just like, Kaylee's with her film, PAULINA, about the gambling addiction.
Yeah.
Do you have to convince them or have them feel how do you feel about doing that?
So I actually shot the film in California. I was going to school out there at a community college at Pasadena, and I had a hard time casting. I mean, I've done casting in Georgia too, and it's nearly impossible. Actually, my last short film, I had to shoot myself because of the pandemic, but was also I had a little kid in it, and it was actually the same kid that played in Removal because he's my nephew. And so I've been having to rely on family a lot. The mom was actually played by my mom. So, and the actual real actors, the professional actors, was the son Paul and his wife, and I guess like the ICE agents, and yeah, and of course the monk was actually a real monk too. So
yeah.
But yeah, my casting process is pretty similar. I rely on auditions heavily. I guess I get nervous about casting non-professionals because I've had instances where they don't show up for call times, and so my way to kind of I guess protect myself or add a little bit more confidence in them is I make the casting or the audition a little bit specific. Like I ask them to bring in something and give me an example of what they think the character is. Give me a movie example of a character in another movie that they would actually use for research if they did. Things like that, just to see if they're a little invested in the film and they actually like what it's about instead of just wanting to be in a movie.
Okay, so thank you. So here's a question that we have from our viewer, from Angelica. She said, Suicide, do you have any recommendation or advice for getting a late start on screenwriting?
I didn't start writing my first screenplay until I was 24, 25, and I did it because I had to turn in an entire script for my graduate application. So now, I mean, 10 years into it, I guess my advice would be to just keep writing, to keep failing at it. Even the scripts that don't work will normally teach you something about the way you write or what to write. And also, in the very beginning of writing my screenplays, I held the script so close that I didn't allow a lot of people to read it. And when you do that, you don't find, I guess, maybe the holes in your stories, or maybe an avenue in which your characters could go, or a layer to your story that could be missing, and maybe this reader or this friend that you trust, or this collaborator that whose opinion you really take into account could bring that. So I say, don't be afraid. Like, screenwriting is lonely, and you have to be very fearless with getting that story read, that story told, and even through the production process.
I would say personally, just not to talk about it as much, because I feel like when I talk about, like, oh yeah, guess what, I'm writing a script. When I do that too much, I end up not writing it for some reason. I either like talked about it so much and I second guess the idea eventually and start hating it. So my advice would be just to write, just start it, and let the words kind of push you forward.
I would also add that it's not too late. It's not too late to pursue that path, because it's a life. It's a life that you're committing to. It's a writing life. It's the creative life. And as both Krew and Caylee are saying, you know, it's something that you keep at little by little. I mean, imagine all the people. I mean, we all have ideas, and I was just talking. Actually, this was with Pise yesterday, and her reminding me that there's so many script ideas that don't get written, or they do get written but they don't get made, or they get made but they don't go anywhere. So that's true for writing, especially for writing, is you have the idea, and I agree with Krew, like, it's just do the writing. You know, we tend to talk a lot about writing. Writers talk about, when you're writing, when you're a writer, you're writing. When you're a screenwriter, you're writing the script. So commit to that. It's not an easy life. You know, it's asking of you to develop a level of discipline and commitment, but that's true for anything that you care about, right? It's committing to it and saying, I'm going to do it and I'm going to finish it.
Tristan, yes.
I write almost everything by hand in a notebook to start
Whoa.
with. I don't, it's not, you can't like read a notebook that's a script. Like, I wish that was the case, but for some reason, I only can start thinking if I'm actually like pen on the paper. So it's usually I'll go to when we could go out, I would go to a cafe and like headphones on, and I usually create like a playlist. I have like a deep music library, and film to me is so connected to music, as float is. Like, music's a big part of it, that I'll make a auditory landscape and write to how I feel with the music. And usually once I get going in the notebook, which I mean can take time, but like I'll write like 15 pages in the notebook. I have no idea where it's going to go, but something will click, and then I'll come home in the evening, type it all into script form, like fix my errors, and that will like start fleshing out. But even with that 15 pages on the computer, I'll still have the next day start again in the notebook. And that's just how it works for me. But it's something about like I know this is a luxury, but like hour 4 or 5 into the process is much more beneficial than hour 1 and 2. Like, it's what comes at the end.
So,
and also in the revision, like, I'm writing a feature right now that
I'm constantly revising.
Yeah, she's constantly reading. It's a completely different subject. It's everything different, but like, it's been 5 years of revising, and
my advice is to trust yourself and trust your own voice, because it's so easy to doubt yourself. And when you doubt yourself, you can easily pivot and then build on top of that, and then pivot and build on top of that, and then you kind of lose your voice. So it's just have more trust in yourself than you're instinctually inclined to have.
Yeah, thanks. So adding on to that, this is the big question. What's next? What's your next project? What are you guys are working on next? All of you guys.
I guess I sort of was leading to it. Just a handful of different scripts in different directions, but in the float world, we have drafted out or come up with a show, potential TV show series. When we screened with you guys several years ago, we got a lot of interest in a potential, like, this should be something.
Or what's next?
and,
Next
like,
with Rocky?
And like, you want to, or like a long form.
So I think we accidentally made a pilot.
Yeah.
Oh, that's very cool. Congratulations. I would love to see that.
Well, no, so the float sort of began to feel like a pilot. So then out of that, now we started writing much bigger. And what's been interesting in delving more into it, the little girl Danny has actually come to the surface more as the star rather than Rocky. And so the show would follow her transition into middle school and all the like adventures around her and subsequent. But
sorry, I'm getting like messages here. Like, we have about 5 minutes to wrap up. Can you guys give like a brief, again, story on like what you guys are up to, like a quick one, so the audience would know.
Not a ramble. And yeah, so we're in the process of figuring out what to do with that, and then in the process of working on a feature to figure out where to go with that.
Thank you. Krew?
Well, as soon as this whole pandemic is over, I'm most likely going to go into graduate school back at Georgia State again. A lot of people asked me about making I guess a part 2 of Removal. They want to, because it ends on a little bit of a cliffhanger, and they want to know what happens to him and everything. And so I've thought about that, but ultimately I was kind of just I don't have a whole lot planned when it comes to scripts. I just, whatever I feel at the time, whatever I feel, I just compelled to do. So I guess we'll see sometime next semester, I'm guessing.
Thanks. And Thavary?
Yeah, I wish we had more time to talk about the music, because
No, we have time. What do you?
Hold on. Before you go on, for those who's watching this right now and didn't get a chance to watch the films, the 4 short films, you can watch it until May 17th. So tell your friends, tell your brothers and sisters, your mother, your father, you got nothing to do, you're gonna stay at home anyways, watch the movie. These are great films, and it'll be up until May 17th. Thank you, Visual Communication, for that. Sorry, go ahead and you were saying.
Well, thank you, Cambodia Town Film Festival, for putting this together, because this is history. I mean, I just had to say that. So the next project, it's going to be I'm working on a feature script. A lot of it having to do with music, and having to do with searching and longing and sort of leaving, our families all left something behind. So exploring that. And I want to talk about the music quickly in each of your film, because that's sort of one of the first things I noticed, is sort of the distinct music selection and familiar Cambodian popular music sort of weaving through with Floats, with Pauline, and even in Krew, just sort of the folk music. So in Krew's film. So my question is, why was it important for you to select those pieces of music that was so indicative of Cambodian popular music or Cambodian music?
I guess I'll start. Well, for me, because my movie was very much about a community of people that came together because it felt comfortable, that there was a piece of like their history that they could share with each other, and in it some way they kind of like felt almost stuck in this era. So for me to bring back that music that they love so much and that they enjoyed, so throughout the film and I guess the first 2 acts of the film, it was all like Cambodian classic films. And then in the later part of the films, I took like artists like Bochan, who was taking those classics, but then giving it a very like Cambodian American spin to those classics. And so I integrated those 2 worlds because I feel like as Cambodian American, you're always kind of like sitting on that line between like a Cambodian culture and an American culture. And do you speak Khmer enough? Do you not speak, is your Khmer, like, so I was floating between that and like having those 2 ideas meet together was like very interesting to me. And I remember even before we edited the film, we selected the kind of music that we wanted throughout the film.
Yeah, thank you. The question was, what is your next project? And then we'll wrap up.
I'm developing a horror film, a supernatural horror drama, and also a sports drama.
Okay, any final words, you guys, before we wrap up? Thank you guys for being here.
Before we go, praCh, I know like this is, before we go, because we're here and we are talking about Cambodian American voices and we're talking about why it's important to keep creating these contents, there's not a lot of Cambodian filmmakers out there. So for you guys who have come to this point, and I'm like honored to be here with you guys to tell these Cambodian American stories, what would you say to maybe the person who's thinking about making a film, or to the Cambodian person who is interested? And why is it like important for us to be here right now?
Go out there and do it.
We'll end on that note.
Yeah, go out there and make it happen. I think that's the most important thing. And we are here for you guys. Like, this is a community of filmmakers. And that's one of the reasons why we have the Cambodia Town Film Festival in Long Beach, because we want to provide a platform for filmmakers to showcase their film on the big screen. And for more information on our film festival, we have a Facebook page, which is Cambodia Town Film Festival, or go to our website, under the same title. But thank you guys all for being here. And again, for the audience who didn't get a chance to watch these films, go watch it. It'll be up until May 17th. Go watch their films. Support your Khmer directors and screenwriters and filmmakers. And that's all the time we have today. Thank you everyone for taking the time to hang out with us. And also next Saturday, please check with Cinema Salsa, presented by Cinema Diaz and the filmmakers Ramona Diaz. So that's for next Saturday. And again, go to Visual Communication, check them out at vcmedia.com. Thank you, Visual Communication, for putting this together. And thank you for the Asian American Pacific Film Festival organizing this as well. Jadil Sul, be safe and take care, you guys. Thank you.
Yeah, be safe.
All right. Bye, guys.